Let's go Eagles! The atmosphere is tense behind the scenes in the NFL, and the Philadelphia Eagles have some issues to resolve. Many are pessimistic about our team, but in my opinion, that's just envy. Some journalists said the following: according to them, the Philadelphia Eagles may be entering the playoffs as the most disrespected team in the NFC. Seriously, I believe in the Eagles' potential, and I respect all the work that's being done. We will win the playoffs and reach the Super Bowl once again. Now, let's talk about something important. This wild card matchup against the San Francisco 49ers is shaping up to be much more favorable for Philadelphia than the national talk would have you believe. While analysts from NFL Network and other outlets are making bold claims about a blowout by the Niners, the numbers, the matchups, and the health reports point to one reality. The Eagles are prepared to interrupt San Francisco's playoff run before it even begins. Let's start with the obvious. The Eagles at home in the playoffs are a different beast. Jalen Hurts has a 5-0 record at Lincoln Financial Field in the postseason. Under Nick Sirianni, the Eagles haven't allowed a single turnover in those games, while forcing 14 turnovers. They've trailed for a total of only 5 minutes and 43 seconds in all 5 games. That's not just home court advantage, it's dominance. And when you consider that Brock Purdy's only playoff game away from home ended with him being eliminated early against this same Eagles team last season, the psychological advantage leans even more heavily in Philadelphia's favor. Now, it's fair to say this season hasn't been perfect for the Eagles. The offense has been inconsistent, and there are serious questions about Kevin Patullo's ability to call a game at this level. But none of that matters anymore. This is playoff football. It's about matchups. It's about physicality. And it's about experience. Philly checks every box. The defensive numbers are staggering. Vic Fangio's unit has held opposing quarterbacks to a league-low 56% completion rate and only 14 passing touchdowns all season. And yes, while Fangio's blitz rate is lower than league average, that doesn't mean pressure won't be coming. The return of Nakobe Dean gives the Birds a potent chess piece in the pass rush, not just as a blitzer but as someone who can disguise looks and force Brock Purdy into tight windows. Don't forget, Purdy's turnover-worthy play rate triples when blitzed. His EPA drops into the negatives. That's a flashing red light if you're Kyle Shanahan. Speaking of Shanahan, he's had major issues when trailing. In games where his teams enter the fourth quarter down by 7 or more points, Shanahan is 1-38. That's not a fluke. That's a trend. And it ties into another critical point. The Niners' running game has been flat-out ineffective. Despite the name recognition, Christian McCaffrey is averaging just 3.86 yards per carry, with a career-worst rate in broken tackles and yards after contact. Pro Football Reference shows he breaks a tackle just once every 31 carries. That's bottom-tier production masked by volume. The Niners' offensive line hasn't helped either. When Purdy is pressured, his flaws are glaring. He's holding the ball for an average of over 3 seconds per dropback, among the slowest in the league, and yet the team has given up the 5th fewest sacks. That's not sustainable when you're up against an Eagles front that's been leading the league in sacks and pressures since Week 10. Jalen Carter is healthy again. Nolan Smith is surging. Josh Sweat is playing angry. That defensive front is ready to feast. And it's not just the Eagles' defense that's trending up. The offensive line, finally healthy, gets a massive boost with Lane Johnson back. Johnson's return stabilizes the entire unit and unlocks key packages that feature Fred Johnson as a 6th lineman, which helped open up running lanes during Saquon Barkley's best stretch earlier this season. With that formation back in play, the Eagles can start imposing their will again in the ground game. Now let's talk about mismatches, because there are plenty of them. The 49ers defense is collapsing in the very areas where the Eagles are built to exploit. They rank 18th in yards per play on first down, 31st on second down. And Philly? They've been crushed all year long on early downs, but this might be the game where they finally flip the script. Then there's the 49ers linebacker group, with Fred Warner out and other key players like D. Winters and Tatum Bethune not practicing all week. San Francisco will likely be forced to roll out a patchwork unit. Veteran Eric Kendricks, who's only played 46 snaps all season, may be tasked with calling the defensive plays. Against an up-tempo Eagles offense, that's a disaster waiting to happen. Don't be surprised if Jalen Hurts and Brian Johnson target that second level repeatedly with Dallas Goedert and Saquon Barkley out of the backfield. This is exactly the type of matchup the Eagles have to take advantage of. And while we're here, let's highlight just how bad the Niners' defense has been overall. They rank 19th in points allowed per drive, 24th in yards per carry allowed, dead last in sacks, and 30th in pressure rate. They've only won the turnover battle 4 times this season. These are not championship caliber numbers. This is a defense that's bleeding, and the Eagles are entering with extra rest while San Francisco just got physically manhandled last weekend. Momentum, health, and matchup all lean green. That doesn't even include the 49ers mounting injury issues. As of Friday, they had 7 players listed as questionable, including key names like Ricky Pearsall, D. Winters, Keon White, and Trent Williams. Of those, Pearsall might be the most impactful. When he plays, the 49ers average 27.3 points per game. Without him, that number drops to 23.9. He leads the team in explosive plays of 20-plus yards, and that's while missing nearly half the season. If he's out, the vertical threat is gone, and it falls on guys like Jawan Jennings or Kendrick Bourne to step up. Not exactly a scary proposition for Fangio's secondary. All of this brings us back to Jalen Hurts, the X-Factor who simply shows up when it matters most. Sure, Robert Saleh was able to scheme up a great game against Hurts back when he was with the Jets. But Hurts is a different player now. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's battle-tested. He's 5-0 at home in the playoffs. And unlike Purdy, he doesn't blink under pressure. Even in a down year, he accounted for over 35 total touchdowns and remained one of the best red zone quarterbacks in the league. In the end, if this game comes down to coaching decisions, Kevin Patullo's play calling is a valid concern. But if it's players versus players, this is Philly's game to lose. They have the better quarterback. They have the healthier roster. They have the stronger defensive line. And they have home field advantage in one of the most electric playoff environments in the NFL. So while the national media may want to hype up a 49ers upset, the reality is this: the Eagles are rested, loaded, and built for this moment. What do you think, Eagles fans? Can Jalen Hurts and this defense take down the banged-up 49ers and move on to the next round? Let me know your thoughts below. Let's keep it going. Now, one of the most underrated dynamics heading into this matchup is just how physical the Eagles can be in the trenches, and how that contrasts with what San Francisco brings to the table. You can talk about explosive plays all you want, but postseason games are often decided by who wins at the line of scrimmage. That's where Philly might have the clearest advantage. Let's go back to what the Eagles' defensive front has looked like when fully healthy. Since the return of Jalen Carter, and with the additions of Nolan Smith and the steady development of veterans like Fletcher Cox and Josh Sweat, this is a unit that's been not just dominant, but destructive. And while Brock Purdy has received a lot of praise this season, he has one glaring weakness: pressure. Not just any pressure, but interior pressure. That's exactly what Jalen Carter specializes in. When you look at how the 49ers offensive line has performed against top-tier pass rushing units, it becomes clear this is not the same elite group they were a few years ago. They've been beaten up by teams like the Seahawks and Texans, both of whom caused chaos up front. Philly's defensive line ranks near the top of the league in total pressures since Week 10. If they can replicate that form, especially with Vic Fangio knowing when and where to dial up disguised blitzes, Purdy is going to be forced into mistakes. And the numbers back it up. He threw interceptions on 3.5% of his passes this year. That's a high number. The only quarterbacks with worse rates were J.J. McCarthy, Shadir Sanders, Tua Tagovailoa, and Geno Smith. Not exactly elite company. Now factor in Fangio's track record against Kyle Shanahan. In their 4 head-to-head meetings, Shanahan's offenses have scored 11, 6, 15, and 9 points.